All right, take a seat, please. Welcome to one of the last sessions to happen during this EAGx. Welcome to the closing talk. A lot has happened since we met yesterday. I think some of you were already also at the opening session. I think we've had quite an intense 2 days. I see some tired eyes. Some of you had some trouble coming out of bed this morning, but I'm glad you all made it. Some people might still be lost in the Jarbers venue. They might never come out alive, but that's okay. We got a big hall. Most of you are here, and I'm really grateful for that. Yeah, really a lot has happened since yesterday. About 1,500 one-on-ones took place, plus a lot that were probably spontaneous, and maybe even the most fun ones. But these were the ones that were scheduled to swap cards. About 100 talks and workshops and meetups and office hours took place, during which you discussed your career plans, during which you learned powerful new ideas, met cool new people, even learned some useful skills. I think we did a good job. If we got a lot of people enthusiastic about making theories of change, like we're really onto something here. And even the monitoring and evaluation workshop was really well visited. So that was amazing. The last numbers even say that the pledge drive was also quite productive. Like they were active, buzzing around there the whole weekend. And about 18 people have taken a pledge this weekend. Of course, they are still running around. Sheer just came by here. He looked really hyperactive. I hope he gets some sleep sometime soon. But they're still really active. It's about 5 pledges to go, 10% pledges to go until the 9,000 mark. I know some people are still brooding on this. So let's see what we can still do. But this conference, it was just a lot. And I was really inspired to just sometimes look at this big hall and see all of you having lots of one-on-ones. It was really hard to get in between something. Everyone was so busy. I rarely saw anyone doing nothing, which I'm also a bit concerned about. But yeah, it wouldn't have been possible without you, but it also especially wouldn't have been possible without these 6 people who I would like to welcome to stage for a second. And please give them a warm welcome. Just stand in the line, don't be awkward. Come on, come on. Woo! So, we're gonna go by them one by one, because really, a lot happens to make this conference happen. This event was brought to you by EA Netherlands, important to say. James Herbert was the project lead, the community director of Effective Altruism Netherlands, who a lot of you will know. He's the project lead for EAGxUtrecht, who he made sure that this event happened in the first place. He checked out the venue, he tasted the food, he just made sure that nothing was, yeah, very important. He made sure that nothing was missed and managed this whole project. It's a big thing to pull off. Marieke de Visser, the other community director, round of applause, please. By the way, come on. Marieke de Visser, the other community director of EA Netherlands, a real powerhouse, and she helped out in also picking the venue. She helped out with lots of things. She pushed back on James' ideas whenever necessary. She pushed back on our ideas. She helped us out with the promotion. A truly reliable person who just helps out with everything. I think any one of you that met her during this conference can attest to this, how helpful Marieke is with anything. So please, a round of applause for Marieke. Speaking of a powerhouse, Anna, she was the marketing officer for this event, so she came up with all the funky design and the whole promotion to basically let you know that this event was happening. But also, sadly, she was responsible for Swapcard. And you thought that using Swapcard was frustrating. Now, wait until you have to program it. So sadly, she couldn't make it to this. Oh, you made it out alive! Please give it up for Anna. Kars led the volunteer team. He had to do a lot of planning to steer the really big volunteer team we had, who did an amazing job, by the way, but a lot of coordination work goes into that. Kars was a truly reliable person to work with. some of these people had to endure lots of also, I've been slacking a lot, so anytime I texted them, like, oh, did you think about this? Kars was the person that already thought about everything. So please give it up for Kars. Kars was also the admissions officer, so it's good that you gave him an applause. So he was the person you were trying to convince to let you in, so he knows everything about you. No, kidding. So then the adult in the room, Chiona, the only professional in events production amidst us, and you could tell. Chiona is the person that thinks and anticipates about all the problems and things that people have to think about, and all the issues we could run into, all the logistics of making an event happen. And yeah, really a pleasure to work with her. If you're ever looking for someone, if you're organizing a big event, would recommend. Give her a round of applause, please. I was the content officer, so I hope you liked the program, because I picked it for you. I hope you enjoyed the sessions and had a good time. I'm also a professional door hanger designer. I'm still looking for a philanthropist to back my design. Well, not everyone was at the opening session, but there's a couple more inside jokes about this coming up. Anyway. So I think I speak on behalf of the whole team. We're incredibly grateful you were all here, and I think I speak on behalf of you, and we're incredibly grateful that all these people are here. So please, a last applause as we welcome them off the stage and thank them for all their hard work. All right, well, this is one of the last sessions, but you might be wondering, oh, backtracking. Gratitudes. There's a lot of people I just forgot to thank. That's actually really should be thanked. We already luckily thanked the volunteers in the opening session, but maybe they deserve another round of applause, right? I think they worked really hard. Lots of them are really tired. Thank you all. Also, community health team, the people that were ready to support you whenever you needed them. Also, the Center of Effective Altruism, not the Crustacean Empathy Alliance, but the Center for Effective Altruist, the events team, they supported us whenever we needed them and made this event happen. And also all the staff from the Jaarbeurs. Of course, don't forget the Jaarbeurs venue. Working with them has been incredibly nice. They were incredibly attentive. And I think whenever I ran into someone on this venue, they were always interested by the venue. It was a really nice experience. I think, yeah, together with the Jaarbeurs, we really made this event happen. So please join me in thanking them all, including CEA and the community health team. Yes, a lot goes into an event like this. Good, so this is one of the last sessions that we're going to have from Lisa. You might be wondering, what's next? Well, first of all, we of course recommend you to follow up. Take the momentum, even though you might be tired, make sure to take the momentum that you have now into the rest of your life. So follow up on any ambitious plans that you made during this weekend, right? It might help to also tell these plans to other people. Whether it's a project you're going to kickstart or a career move you're aiming to make, tell other people about it. That helps a lot. We're at a really supportive community. People will help you like brainstorm ideas, connect you with the right people, and it just helps to put this intention out there. Don't be scared to put an ambitious goal out there. We all know how hard it is to do things also next to our normal lives. But really, just take this momentum with you. Also follow up on all the one-on-ones you made. Make sure to connect with people outside of Swapcard, because probably you will not be looking for a Swapcard after this week. So make sure you can reach them in case you might need them, or you might want to reach out to these people in the future. If you want some support with all of this, you're probably tired, but if you want to have support with wrapping this all up and getting the most out of your experience, please join the takeaway sessions that is right after this, this closing talk. It's at 5 in Mission 2. There's also still a pledge party at 5:45, just before the venue closes, which is a really big, like a last push from the pledge booth to see if we can still make those 9,000 mark, and for people that have been kind of interested or just have been involved to kind of close this off in a celebratory way. Also check out the satellite events, because this venue will close at 6. But there's still lots to do in the city. There's going to be a dinner at Karma Kebab. I already saw that 90 people signed up. This is a nice, spacious vegan festival venue, and there's a party in the Lebowski as well for the real hardcore people among you. Good. So, then the moment you've all been waiting for. We, as a team, have been feeding you with cool ideas. We have been feeding your social battery with lots of cool new people you met. We have been feeding your brains with new project ideas, powerful new ideas. Maybe you change your mind. We have been feeding you. We've been feeding you literally with lots of cool food, great food. We have abundant food. So I hope you made use of that. So really, now it is time for you to feed feedback form. So, feedback form. If you've been at the EAGx before, you know that the closing session is basically a Trojan horse to make you fill in the feedback form. The doors are now closed. No, kidding. The feedback form is extremely important. There's been a couple sessions at this event that talk to you about how important it is to come up with a theory of change for anything you're doing, to do proper monitoring and evaluation from anything you're doing. Basically, just to make sure that things work out the way that you planned them. Because often this is not the case, right? We planned this event with something in mind. We thought, oh no, if we do this, then this will be the outcome. But events are really hard. Community building is really hard. And just like any other thing you're doing, it's really important to monitor, to collect data, to make sure that you're actually doing what you think you're doing. And the best data that we have is you. Really, this is kind of all we have. So please help us in understanding what happens, both the most valuable things, the least valuable things. We were probably not aware of it. So you can really, really help us out by taking this feedback form serious and giving us all the inputs that you have. You're not only helping us, but as you probably know, EAGx events are happening all over the world. And by helping give some input on what made this event valuable or not valuable, you're basically helping out improve EAGx events all over the world. I just saw Ivan. Ivan, are you in the room? Yes. Ivan will be very sad. Okay. Then, there's a lot of things you can do. You can scan this QR code to reach the feedback form. I also made a short link for you that you can also follow. And ideally, the link through Swapcard should also work, but I just heard it doesn't. Basically, I'll be walking around this room. If you have any troubles reaching it, please come to me personally. I'm going to introduce our final speaker for this event. I did practice the bio, but currently my brain is running on 5% capacity. Lisa has been working as a diplomat at the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs for 7 years. She worked on improving labor conditions in Qatar and on the peace process between Israel and Palestine. She also improved institutional decision-making by introducing red teaming in their policy development. Lisa worked on the board, overseeing the activities of a UN program, spending billions on international development. She also worked on the board, overseeing, oh, I already said that one. She followed the preparations of the Summit of the Future and created a new role for herself, supporting the Dutch penholder for a declaration on future generations. I think she's going to explain what that means. She currently works on international cyber diplomacy and has put artificial intelligence on the agenda of the senior management of the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which has resulted in them making the decision to develop an international AI diplomacy strategy. She is also the acting chair of EA Netherlands, so we're really happy to welcome her on stage for this closing session. Please welcome Lisa Gotoh.
Thank you, Martijn. I'm interested, how many people are here for the first time at an EAG conference? Wow, that's a lot. So yeah, I'm happy that I decided to start my intro by sharing a bit how my first experience was getting acquainted with EA. I remember my first EA meeting in 2017. I'd started reading the book Doing Good Better by Will MacAskill, and I think it was through Facebook that I saw there was a meetup in Amsterdam. So I jumped on my bike, and when I arrived at the bar, I was looking around and I saw a guy sitting over there waving at me, and I figured that'd be the group. I sat down and we did a round of introductions. I was studying interdisciplinary social sciences at the time. which was a mainly female-dominated study. And here I was sitting with almost only guys. During the introduction rounds, it became clear I was the only one not studying science, technology, engineering, or mathematics. I was thrilled to meet people with such different backgrounds and interests who shared this interest of mine of wanting to do good and to be impactful. They also wanted to contribute to making the world a better place, just like me. This was the start of my effective altruism journey. I went to more events, read more books, listened to more podcasts. I enjoyed learning new insights from experts and people around the world. And at the same time, I was building my own expertise, working for the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs. My first EA conference was in Boston in 2022. I'd moved to New York the year before, and this was the nearest conference from where I lived. In the run-up to the conference, I had written my first solo post on the EA forum to call for more attention to the UN in the EA community. After working in and around the UN at that time for 2 years, I wanted to share what I had learned. With 900 participants, they claimed to be the biggest EAGX conference so far. It was exciting, but it was also the first time in my life that I really felt I was part of a minority. I looked around in the audience during the opening, and I noticed there was a clear majority of white, young, well-educated men. During my first one-on-one, I shared this observation, to which the guy I was talking to said, "Whoa, I had no idea. I didn't even notice." A short while later, a guy approached me and said, "Did you write the forum post on the United Nations?" I replied, "Yes." To which he said, "Wow, you are bold, writing something like that on the EA forum?" It was clear that he wasn't convinced by my arguments. We talked a bit, and I tried to further elaborate what I wrote. But soon I found out that he had little interest in changing his mind. He came up with all sorts of numbers and cost effectiveness of other interventions that the UN couldn't present, and therefore the UN must have been very ineffective, he seemed to think. I don't think I changed his mind that day, but I appreciated the conversation. I'm sharing with you this experience because, well, one of the reasons I'm such a fan of EA is the scout mindset and an opportunity to learn from others. I'm aware that the ability to really have an open mind, to be aware of our own biases, including groupthink due to a lack of diversity, is something that you need to train and be aware of. I believe it is an essential skill to make our community successful. Because by engaging with people with diverse backgrounds, knowledge, and thoughts, we improve our own critical thinking. I hope you have been challenged in your thinking in the past 3 days. I see this conference as a place where people come together who share a set of values, like the fact that we believe that all lives are equal. I see this as a place where we come together to discuss the question about how we can have a bigger impact to drive positive change. And I also see this as a place where we are humble and uncertain about our thoughts, and at the same time eager to share insights and experiences to learn and change our minds. Today, I will tell you a couple of stories about the United Nations based on my experience. I will tell you why I believe it is an important institution to consider if you want to bring about global change. I've been working at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Netherlands for nearly 7 years. And I've questioned my own career choice multiple times, whether this was the place where I would be most impactful. But in line with EAGx advice, I decided to stay with an organization that offered lots of learning opportunities in the early stages of my career. My experience working as a diplomat in the past years have helped me get a better understanding about the complexity of global challenges and in trying to address them collectively. It also kept me optimistic because I witnessed tremendous opportunities. Today, I will share with you 3 insights. First, EA thinking leads us to seek the path of impact. The UN is not always impactful, but it can be impactful. And when it is, it has impact at great scale. Second, the UN is a unique institute. There's no substitute, and given its reputation and mission, we should be supportive of the UN when it has an opportunity to play an impactful role. Third, current opportunities for impact at the UN lie in the upcoming Summit of the Future and the Declaration on Future Generations that aim to promote long-term thinking in policy and decision-making. So first, why the UN matters and had a significant impact in the past. Former Secretary General of the UN, Kofi Annan, stated that the Montreal Protocol was the most successful environment treaty in history. In 1985, atmospheric scientists in Antarctica noticed the ozone layer was depleting. Projections suggested that at that pace, the ozone layer would collapse by 2050. A collapse of the ozone layer would have severe consequences to plants, trees, animals, and humans. But the damage that was done has been reversed because the world responded, because the UN responded. In 1986, UN negotiations began on a treaty to ban substances that reacted with the ozone. A year later, the Montreal Protocol on substances that deplete the ozone layer was agreed upon. It regulates the production and consumption of nearly 100 ozone-depleting chemicals. The scientific report on ozone depletion from 2022 concluded that this treaty stimulated the development of replacement substances in a number of industrial sectors. Banning certain chemicals led to investments in new technologies. The report found that the ozone layer is projected to return to its 1980 levels in 2040. And keeping the ozone intact buys us time to address climate change. This was something that could have only been achieved through international collaboration. The treaty included binding, time-targeted, and measurable commitments. The treaty established a multilateral fund for the implementation of the protocol. UN organizations like the UN Industrial Development Organization and the World Bank implemented over 8,000 projects under the fund, providing technical assistance, training, and support in industrial conversion worth over $3.9 billion. The Montreal Protocol parties based their decisions on scientific, environmental, technical, and economic information that is provided by their assessment panels. This panel supports global scientific consensus on the issue at hand, with recommendations to be followed up by governments. This example shows what the UN can do at its best. It can be a place where collective problems that can only be solved through collaboration can be effectively addressed. It can offer the tools necessary to address global challenges, like a scientific panel to reach common understanding. It has UN agencies at its disposal to support countries who need it to comply. I'm not pleading today that the UN is the most effective organization. That would be impossible because the UN is a very large system. And the UN development system alone already consists of over 40 UN organizations, funds and programs that work on all sorts of global issues. Some of its work may be effective, while other parts may not be. However, I'd like to briefly explain why the UN as an institute is important. First, scale. When the UN, comprising of 193 states, comes to effective solutions, like with the Montreal Protocol, it has a global effect. It is a place where collective action problems can be solved. There are no international institutes that cover the scale of impact that the UN can have. Second, presence. The UN has a presence in 165 countries, supporting them in their development. And related to that, reputation. The UN has a reputation that is respected and politically neutral. Therefore, governments trust cooperating with them in developing policies. Last but not least, the democratic character of the UN. It is the only global democratic platform where 193 states come together to discuss global issues. The US, China, Kiribati, Vanuatu, they all have one vote in the UN General Assembly. Any state, regardless of how big or small, can propose new topics on the agenda and kick off a new negotiation process. This especially offers opportunities for impact for states who play a smaller role in the geopolitical arena. We all know its flaws, but I think the former US Secretary of State Madeleine Albright said it right when she said, "If it wouldn't exist, we would invent it." With a huge mission to bring about international peace, security, and development, and an annual budget that is smaller than that of the New York municipality, it makes sense the UN is not effective in everything it does. But we can determine when we think the UN should and can play an effective role and support the system in that endeavor. Ensure that it is not neglected when the UN has a role to play. So now I'll tell you about the Summit of the Future and the political momentum we have in creating a new benchmark for issues that are important for our future this year. In 2020, the UN celebrated its 75th anniversary. All world leaders signed the UN 75 Declaration, in which they requested the Secretary General to present our common agenda. Our common agenda was a report published in 2021, and it presented the vision of the UN Secretary General on the future of global cooperation. It contains over 90 proposals, including significant reform of the global governance system in order to make it more inclusive and fair. The Secretary General provided the following introduction. We are at an inflection point in history. Humanity faces a stark and urgent choice: breakdown or breakthrough. The choices we make or fail to make today could result in further breakdown and a future of perpetual crisis, or a breakthrough to a better, more sustainable, peaceful future for our planet, people, and planet. Probably not many of you have heard of our common agenda, but you may have heard of Toby Ord, and this is what he said about it. I have to say that I never imagined seeing so many proposals for empowering future generations and providing international governance of existential risk in a single UN report. If member states rise to the challenge, this could be a true turning point. To give you a little more insight, the report underscored that we do not know which extreme risk events will come next. It might be another pandemic, a new war, a high-consequence biological attack, a cyber attack on critical infrastructure, a nuclear event, a rapidly moving environmental disaster, or something completely different, such as technological or scientific developments gone awry unconstrained by effective ethical or regulatory frameworks. Proposals included improving long-term thinking in policy planning by finding ways to represent future generations in decision-making, the publication of a strategic foresight and global risk report every 5 years to collect and analyze data and make sense of risk across the short, medium, and long term. Also, a summit of the future to forge a new global consensus on what our future should look like and what we can do today to secure it. One of the outcomes of the Summit of the Future would be a global digital compact, in which international digital cooperation would be described, and it could also promote, I quote, regulation of artificial intelligence to ensure that this is aligned with shared global values. Another outcome would be a declaration on future generations to ensure that policy and budget decisions take into account their impact on future generations. The Kingdom of the Netherlands was requested to co-facilitate, together with Fiji and later Jamaica, the Declaration on Future Generations. In the UN system, we work with co-facilitators, and they are also pen holders, like Martijn mentioned. These are usually 2 states appointed by the President of the General Assembly who are requested to deliver a product within a certain time frame. Those 2 states are in the lead and determine how to engage with the other UN member states, when and how to organize negotiations, and most importantly, they are the pen holder of the outcome document. I was working at the time at the Permanent Mission of the Netherlands, and I read in the minutes of the management team that we were offered this role, and they were looking for someone to support. I immediately expressed my support, together with 4 other colleagues. We sat down to discuss a division of labor, and I raised my hand for the biggest task, which was starting to figure out what such a declaration should look like. Through that initiative, the head of my team decided I should take the lead, as I had done most work initially. This led to an extension of my stay in New York, and that year was for sure the biggest highlight of my career. We got this job, and we had full freedom in terms of how we wanted to get to an agreement. We just knew we wanted to have it done in a year. Throughout this year, I learned many things, and I'd like to highlight 2 of them. First, and most importantly, there was no sense in starting negotiations when there was not a common understanding on what it would mean to safeguard the interests of future generations. I remember one delegate coming to me after the first meeting we held asking, what do we even mean with future generations? Do we mean my children, my children's children, or can you explain it? These are good questions, because there is no international consensus on what we meant with it. It was clear that we first needed to invest in common knowledge building before starting the discussion on new commitments around this topic. Second, this was a great opportunity for impact. Because when you work on a new topic at the UN, like safeguarding the interests of future generations, you don't have a history of diverging positions and tough negotiations. Many states have historical positions on topics on the global agenda. Take, for instance, the Israel-Palestine conflict. But with new topics, states have to develop a position. And this poses an opportunity to support shaping that position. That is what I focused my work on. From July 2022 to July 2023, I worked with my ambassador, pictured here, the ambassador of Jamaica, also pictured here, and my Jamaican counterpart on organizing a series of meetings about the importance of safeguarding the interests of future generations. In this small 4-member team, I had a true opportunity for impact. Moreover, because the Dutch government did not have a strong position, I worked in a relatively open and free environment to come up with my own ideas and suggestions on how to go about. We were supported by our Common Agenda team from the Office of the Secretary General, who provided us with a lot of support, like a list of stakeholders and experts working on the topic internationally. On 30 June 2022, we organized an expert meeting with Toby Ord, an academic, Claire Inder, a UN representative, Marie Brusto Navarro, the Deputy Commissioner for Future Generations of Wales, and Tamaisha Idol from Future Barbados. The next year, we continued inviting experts from all over the world to share their insights. And encountering Toby Ord and his team, who have been doing academic research in this area, as well as the Simon Institute for Long-Term Governance, made me realize that there were not many experts like these. It would have been very different if we were writing a declaration on improving education, because that is a developed field with many NGOs and experts working in it. We did a call for written input and opened this up for stakeholders outside the UN. This resulted in valuable input from experts in addition to the government input we received. Because there are not many organizations working in the field, working in the field of safeguarding the interests of future generations, the organizations that did engage had a relatively big impact. After retrieving all the input, we started writing an outline of the Declaration on Future Generations. It was a long and slow process with several hurdles on the way. The biggest one being that we were not able to finish the declaration in the summer of 2023. I can tell you a whole other story about how that came to be, but the bottom line was that the other topics on the global agenda were more urgent at the time. Therefore, it was decided to prolong the process with another year, and negotiations on the declarations are currently being held and have started in April. It was also a hard position for me personally, because last summer I had to move back to the Netherlands because of administrative hurdles to stay, and 2 months later, the mission in New York called me if I wanted to come back. I was taking care of my father, who was on his deathbed at the time fighting cancer, so I decided it was not a good time for me to return to New York. I think that was a good call, because when the ambassador shared the first draft of the declaration with me in April, I was proud to see so many things that I have worked on in the first year were reflected in it. Negotiations are still ongoing, so things may change. But I already know for sure we made a big impact with the small Dutch-Jamaican team. And I'm proud to say that currently the text includes a recognition that our actions and inactions today will impact future generations exponentially, and therefore present generations have a responsibility towards safeguarding the needs and interests of future generations. An acknowledgement of the primary role and responsibility of governments towards safeguarding the needs and interests of future generations. And a whole list of concrete actions. Examples include leveraging science data and strategic foresight to ensure long-term thinking and planning, developing and implementing sustainable practices and evidence-based decision-making, investing in capacity to better prepare for and respond to future global shocks and crises using evidence-based planning and foresight, and the appointment of a special envoy for future generations who will collect and share good practices around the world to keep the topic high on the political agenda. So, to conclude, the UN is an important and unique institute. When it has impact at scale. There is currently political momentum for a new global agenda. And organizations that specialize on these new topics can play, in particular, an impactful role. And working for a government at the UN can also be pretty impactful, depending on the opportunities that arise. One exciting way through which an EA-inspired organization is raising awareness about the interests of future generations is an initiative from Michael Munker, who is here today. Michael, can you please stand up? I haven't even told them what you're doing. This is great. Michael initiated the long-term art projects. And I hope you've already seen a series of these inspiring projects on posters at the venue. And if you haven't, I really encourage you to have a look. They're right here displayed in the hall. And Michael brought together a collective of artists working on long-term art projects. And these projects seek to emphasize the importance of our responsibilities across the long term. And what connects the projects are common human themes of community, ritual, care, and the belief that future generations matter. To see it for myself, I visited the Letters of Utrecht, which is in this city, and I can highly recommend you do the same. This project writes a poem through the streets of Utrecht, and every Saturday, for as long as there are Saturdays, a letter to this poem is added. I had the honor to attend and help carve the next letter a few months ago. People can buy a letter and engrave something on the side of the brick before it is laid. It is so popular that there is a waiting list of over a year to contribute to this project. I think this and other long-term art projects are a beautiful way to demonstrate that sometimes we create things and the benefits are only for future generations to be seen. The fact that laying these bricks is so popular shows that people want to be part of something that is bigger than their own lives, that continues beyond their own lives. Now, before I close, I'd like to share another personal story. This weekend has been about increasing impact. We want to do this through effective giving, changing careers, or making different choices in our life. And I'm inspired to see how many people have come to this conference to spend their free time in pursuit of this common mission. There's one thing, though, in particular that is really important to having an impact, which is, I'm going to take a sip of water. To take care of yourself. I set up many initiatives in my work to try and increase my impact. Someone once asked me, how do you get the time to do all these things? And the easy answer is, well, it gives me lots of energy, so I'm willing to go the extra mile. The honest answer is that sometimes it has been too much for me. I wish someone in my surroundings would have told me that it was okay to take a break, to not continue at the same pace at times. In 2020, I moved to New York in the midst of the COVID pandemic with my partner. We didn't know anyone in New York, and my dream job soon turned out to be a year-long working from an expensive apartment in New York, having almost no opportunity to build a social network. At the same time, my partner was facing a number of health issues, which severely worsened throughout the year. I became a caregiver next to having a demanding job that took a lot of energy from behind my laptop. Throughout the year, the number of small challenges piled up and they fell together like one big challenge. After my partner went through an invasive and risky surgery abroad, while I was supporting him by myself, I decided to take leave and I realized I burned out. The healthcare officer recommended that I stop working for a couple of months. So I did, and that helped getting my stress levels down. But I was still missing the energetic me. I decided to go on a Wim Hof trip to Iceland. Wim Hof is a Dutch man who has developed a technique to support your physical and mental health. And this was by far the most impactful trip of my entire life. It felt like 6 years of therapy in 6 days. I learned the tools of meditation, breathwork, and cold therapy to learn to deal with stress in a healthy way. These events and this journey has made me the person I am today. While I am still very much excited about increasing my impact and giving the extra mile when I believe there's an opportunity for impact, I'm also much more conscious about how I spend my energy. Together with my partner, we are mindful of our health each and every day, and I try my best to take care of my mental and physical well-being through a daily routine of meditation, breathwork, and cold baths. I don't succeed in doing it every day, but I try to make it a habit. And I know that these techniques help me to take a break and realize that creating an impact is one of the many things I try to do in life. And we go about it one thing at a time. So, impact is taking care of yourself. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you so much, Lisa, for this very interesting and deeply personal talk. If any of you have questions for Lisa, I want to ask you to join us in a solar room for Lisa's office hours. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah.
Thank you.